Well, yes, the OM-1's doing well, but where's the GH6 gone? Join me. Roll credits. Well, hi everybody, Brian James, that Micro Four Thirds guy with you once again. And for those people who commented why am I always sitting in my car doing these videos, well, I actually quite like sitting in the car. It gives me a little bit of peace and quiet and a little bit of serenity where I can feel comfortable. But I'm actually in my caravan today and I get that same sort of peace and quiet from that as well. So a little bit of a different background for you. Now, when the video started, I said about the OM-1 really taking off, and it has. It's been a fantastic sales success for OMDs, and I'm really impressed with that. But what's caused that? Well, I think it's appealed to a certain type of shooter, the nature shot, the nature shooter, the sports shooter. The differences it has over the EM1 range seem to really be pushing it forward. And the good thing of it is, it seems to have had an acceptance from the prosumer market as well as the professional market. And I think that's very, very, very important for it. And one thing I'm really impressed with. Now, we've all seen that the OM-1 has had some problems insofar as delivery. It's been difficult to get your hands on one, but pre-sales have been through the roof. They really have taken off on this. The other thing that's been a problem is battery supply. When I've been looking through the comments on these, people seem to be struggling to get a spare battery for it. And again, there's been problems insofar as battery supply, problems insofar as the chips for the camera, and you know, just the bits which actually make it possible to supply it. But I think OMDs were very wily in their marketing. I think they've really marketed it the right place. I think they've really hit the niche by towards the nature and the sports photographers primarily. But I also think that the build up to it, the wow camera that it was coming out with, all this sort of thing, which I believe was nothing to do with OMDs, by the way. I may be wrong on this, but I have heard that the wow thing came from the press rather than the manufacturer itself. But it certainly didn't cause any harm to the reputation of it. But one thing I have really noticed about that particular camera is the incredible sales. I've been talking to my local camera dealers, Wilkinson's in Carlisle, and they've been telling me about the sales success that this is. They have a lot of these cameras which have been on pre-order and which are going out the door. And it's one of the best sales successes they've ever had, I've been told. Now, from that, picture yourself, this is the top of the range OMDs camera. It's not a mid-range one, it's not meant for the amateur market. This is a top of the range professional camera. But it's gone beyond the professional, it's gone to the prosumer side. And that's why I've had so many sales. Now, why am I talking about this at the minute? Well, I've been looking into what's going on camera sales quite avidly in the last few weeks because, well, I've had a bit of an itch. Do you ever have an itch and you just want to scratch it? Well, my itch has been a new camera. As you know, I shoot a Lumix G9. I also have a couple of EM1s, a Mark II and a Mark I, and a GH6 that I use regularly. They're my regular cameras. I've had all sorts of cameras over the years, and occasionally, I know that you should maybe invest more in the lenses, but occasionally it's just nice to have something a bit more techie in your hands. And what I've been looking at was the OM-1, but at £2,000, it's really out of my price league at the moment. It's pushing it for the type of shooting I do. I'm not using it as a professional photographer anymore. This is purely for enjoyment and prosumer side of things on that. So £2,000 is pushing it for a camera body for me. If I was looking at the GH6, which we'll come back to in a few moments, you're talking considerably more again. And again, I just can't justify that. I'm looking primarily for a stills camera which can do video and not a video camera which can do stills. And that's quite important. So again, we'll come back to that point in a few moments with the GH6. So what do I fancy? Well, I've been looking around at EM1X. The M1X for me fits into a nice niche. Now, when it came out, there was a lot of criticism because Micro Four Thirds cameras are meant to be small, light, and easy to carry. And it's something that I've pursued over the years when I've been doing these reviews. The smallness, the lightness, the ease of use of Micro Four Thirds. But this doesn't have that. It's got the extra battery grip as part of the camera. It is quite a large camera. But if you compare it to something like the Canon 1D series or the equivalent, the D5, D6, whatever it is, in the Nikon range. They are bigger again, they're considerably bigger. Now I've had a couple of, well, 3 or 4 1Ds. I had a 1D Mark III, 1D Mark 3S, sorry, 1DS Mark III, and I also had a 1DX. And I've loved those cameras. They are built like brick outhouses. They are absolutely fantastic. And they will take an enormous amount of abuse and punishment. But they are big, they are heavy, even if they are capable. Now, I do an awful lot, or I did an awful lot of portrait shooting. That's why I use those cameras more than anything else. To have it portrait orientated, but to have all the controls to hand and a proper hand grip really made things easier. Now on the G9 and my OM-1s, I do have the additional battery grips, and they are fantastic. They do make the camera usable in that. But there is something of a problem with them still. After a long day's shooting, you suddenly find that your thumb's been catching on the wheel, the attachment wheel, and it starts to loosen off a little bit. So quite often you're tightening them up as you go. And it is an add-on. When it's part of the camera itself, like the 1D was, and like the OM-1X is, you've got advantages in that. There's better cooling for the camera inside. You can use it longer. You've also usually got bigger battery capability because it's better integrated in the camera. And that is a big advantage. So I'm really fancying an OM-1X, and you can get them for just over £1,000 used. Really good examples for about 1,100. And that's absolutely great for me. So I may be looking into that. That is the sort of style of camera when you get it from the more normal manufacturers. You're talking about the A1 from Sony, for instance. You're talking about the 1D and the D whatever, the D5, D6 from Nikon. You're getting all these real top of the range cameras, and they do sell well to the professionals. They sell really well because the press use them, the sports photographers use them, and they are absolutely fantastic for what they do. But those cameras were never intended to get into the prosumer market in reality. They were aimed at a very particular element of photographer, and the price reflected that. When you're paying almost £7,000 for a camera body, you know, when I was buying my 1D Mark III and 1DS3, you know, they were still over £4,000, getting over £5,000 then. You're talking an enormous amount of money, and amateur shooters just don't have the opportunity to do that. If we take the new OM-1 though, the new OM-1 is really the class leader. It is fantastic in this range. It is OMDS cameras top camera. It is the one that is they're pushing hardest, and it has some amazing features and it has some amazing capabilities. So how come it's selling so well? Well, the price point, which a lot of people on the channel seem to criticize, is so expensive. It's so expensive. But you've got a top of the line camera for less than £2,000 or $2,000 if you're in the States. Hi to my US viewers. Nice to see you on the channel. So it's affordable even for a prosumer. Insofar as the features of it, it really is feature packed, especially the improvements in the autofocus for sport photographers and nature photographers. The people who I've seen make comments on this channel who are looking forward to buying the camera because I haven't got it yet, that's the thing the majority seem to be looking for. For the people who have purchased it, who've made comments on it, and thank you for the comments that you have left, it really seems that it's fulfilled an awful lot of your desires in a camera to fulfill your needs in that segment of the market. So I think it's an unusual situation, one that OMDS really need to be proud of, because to have a top range camera selling in such numbers is unheard of almost. Especially if you consider, if you take a pro rata to the overall sales compared to the other manufacturers, this really is a significant segment of the market that they've managed to put their top of the range camera into. So the OM-1 seems to be really flying out the door and really seems to be doing well. But there was another camera launched within days of it, and that was the GH6 from Lumix. Now the GH6 again should be fantastic. 25 megapixel sensor on that. It's the highest megapixel count of the in that sort of class of camera for the Micro Four Thirds overall, and that's been a significant upgrade from the 20 megapixels previously. The video capabilities seem incredible on it. The whole camera is a major step up from the GH5, and the GH4 and GH5 cameras were really market leaders insofar as video production. It seemed that everyone in the dog who did any sort of artistic work on videos using Micro Four Thirds, if they weren't going to the real high end, the real pro end, when you get in the sort of reds and things like that. Then you were talking about the GH4 or GH5 when it came out. The GH5 Mark II came out, and of course you had the GH5S, which fulfilled a different need even further on the video side. But everybody was looking forward to the GH6. It was going to be fantastic. So what's happened to it? I've seen reviews, but they probably are about, if it's 10% of the amount of reviews that you have of the OM-1, then I'd be amazed. It doesn't seem to have captured the imagination. And a lot of the video makers who I talk to, either online or in person, haven't taken the plunge for the GH6. Now, I know it is an expensive camera, but it's also a very capable camera. But what's happened to it? It doesn't seem as if it's actually gone and grasped the market share in the same way as Olympus have done with their flagship camera at the same time. What it has prompted is an awful lot of comments about what's going to happen to the still equivalent. Remember I said I use a G9 and I love my G9. But it seems that the G9 is the replacement for the G9 is a place where most people are looking towards. So what do you think? Has the GH6 missed its niche? Is it something of a low volume sales item for such a high-end camera, of course? Is it just actually in where it's supposed to be? We talked about the other high-end cameras from manufacturers not having super high sales. Is the GH6 actually doing what is normally expected, or is it lagging behind? Is it that Olympus has just got it that little bit extra right, or just gone for a little bit different market which will fulfill its sales? I'm really interested to know, because I'm fascinated with the GH6. I think it's a fabulous camera. I really have seen the spec sheet. I've had a play on one, and not too long, but it did seem to really fulfill all the things that a videographer would probably want and more. And that's really, really interesting for them, because it opens the door for more creative possibilities. But is it too little, too late? Should this have came out, should the facilities of this have came out with the GH5 Mark II? In fact, because the GH5 Mark II came out so recently in the past compared to things, is the GH5 Mark II actually eaten into this market? Have the people who wanted to up their video game invested in the GH5 Mark II and they've missed the boat with the GH6? I'm really interested to know what you think. Please leave a comment below. I am fascinated by it. Going back to the thing about size though, and why I'm looking for the OM-1X. I did say about it being a bigger, heavier camera. But the big advantage for me, because this always starts controversy, whenever I do a video like this online, there's always somebody comes up with but, and what about? Well, for me, the advantage of Micro Four Thirds, more than the bodies, has always been the lenses. We've got some amazing quality lenses. Remember, if you've got a smaller piece of glass, it's easier to get it optically correct than a larger piece. It just manufactures a lot easier and a lot more inexpensively. So we've got inexpensive glass of fantastic quality. And because it is a Micro Four Thirds, a 4/3 size sensor, about, you know, a 2-to-1 ratio compared to full frame, it means that you don't need anywhere near as big a glass to get the same effect. So to get the same amount of light through, you have a smaller lens and a lighter lens. Now I know there are differences insofar as the depth of field, all the bokeh sort of thing, but remember that one person's advantage is another person's disadvantage, and vice versa. So where people may want that really ultra shallow depth of field for portrait work, Micro Four Thirds is often the very lens which is ideal if you're doing landscape and you want that increased depth of field. So just because it doesn't excel at one doesn't mean to say it's bad. So have a look at that. That's what I find that Micro Four Thirds is a real bonus for me for. But again, what do you think? Leave your comments below. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up on this video if you would, because it really does increase the chances of the video getting seen by more people by using YouTube's algorithms. And as usual, if you've enjoyed the video, there's a little PayPal link if you want to put something below. And if you haven't subscribed, please do me a favor. I am so close to 5,000 subscribers, you wouldn't believe it. Of my videos, over half of my videos are viewed by non-subscribers. It doesn't cost you anything to subscribe, so do us a favor, just hit the little subscribe button below. All it does is it put us on your timeline every time I put a video up, so you can see it much easier. But it would really be nice to hit the 5,000 by the end of this month. However, that's my views. What do you think? Is the OM-1 still flying through the door, and is it flying through the door for the right reason? What's happened to the GH6? Leave your comments below. Until the next time, this is Brian James, that Micro Four Thirds guy, saying bye-bye. Look forward to seeing you next time. Don't forget, take your camera out, take your photographs, and enjoy your photography. Bye-bye.